The 34th Assembly District Debate on Newswatch 12.
Good evening and welcome to the 34th Assembly Debate here on Newswatch 12. I'm Dan Hagan. Every 2 years, elections are held for all 99 of the state's assembly districts. The 34th district looks a little different this year because of redistricting. It is now the entirety of Vilas and Oneida counties, with the exception of the town of Nokomis. We've taped this debate beforehand, but no responses will be edited. Let's meet our candidates. Representative Rob Swearingen of Rhinelander is looking for his 6th term in this seat. He owns the Algen Supper Club and was formerly president of the Tavern League of Wisconsin. Mr. Swearingen is a Republican. Eileen Daniel is the Democrat in this race. She currently serves on the Rhinelander Common Council as president. We have plenty of questions to get to. The format will be a minute each for each candidate, followed by a 30-second rebuttal from each candidate. But first, let's get to opening statements, where each candidate will get 1 minute. Representative Swearingen will go first. Representative, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much to WJFW for hosting this debate and for the opportunity to talk about issues affecting the 34th Assembly District. I'm a lifelong resident of Rhinelander, a 1981 graduate from Rhinelander High School, a husband to an amazing wife, and a father to 2 incredible young women, and soon to be a grandfather. I've been a small business owner in the community for 30 years. It's been the privilege of a lifetime to serve as your state representative for these past 10 years, and it's been incredibly humbling to see the amount of support I've received through this campaign. As your state representative, I serve as the chairman of the Assembly Committee on State Affairs, the vice chairman of the Committee on Tourism. I'm also the vice chair of the State Building Commission, chaired by Governor Evers. This past session included several historic investments in tax relief to families and businesses. In addition, we created funding for Wisconsin's healthcare system, made significant investments into education, and increased funding to broadband expansion grants. Common sense conservative reforms have brought Wisconsin back and unleashed the full potential of our residents. The last thing we should do is change our representation in Madison to somebody who would turn back the tried and failed policies of the past. That's why I've decided to run for another term and why I'm again applying to the voters of the 34th Assembly District for the job of state representative.
Thanks, Representative. Ms. Daniel, your opening statement.
Thank you. First, again, I want to also thank WJFW for hosting this debate and to thank all the viewers for tuning in tonight. Throughout my life, I've lived in big cities, I've lived in small towns, but I've called Rhinelander home for the last 18 years. I've raised all 3 of my kids here, and they've all gone to the public schools here. In fact, my youngest is currently a freshman at Rhinelander High School. I met and married my husband here. He's a Navy vet and a truck driver. I care deeply about this area, this state, and the people who live here. I want to make sure everyone's rights are upheld, especially women. I want to keep our communities safe, our schools well-funded, and keep your best interests at the heart of my time in the Assembly, rather than working for lobbies or corporations. I also vow to listen to any and all constituents, regardless of political ideology. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daniel and Representative Swearingen. Let's go to our first question. Let's take a look at some price changes from the last year to this year. A gallon of gas costs 60 cents more. A gallon of milk costs around 65 cents more. A used car could be thousands of dollars higher. What can the state government do to help out Wisconsinites who are struggling? Ms. Daniel, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. There are a lot of factors which have contributed to inflation. The pandemic led to supply shortages. The war in Ukraine affected gas prices. But don't talk to me about inflation without also mentioning record profits being seen by corporations like Amazon and Shell and BP. And don't complain about the cost of eggs when Douglas McMillon, the president and CEO of Walmart, made over $5 million last year. There's a huge wealth gap in the United States, and everyone knows it's there. So everyone knows those big tax breaks that the Republicans gave to corporations in 2017 by the Trump administration did not trickle down to the middle class. And something has to give, but the middle class has given more than its fair share for too long, and we need to bring back a fair tax rate for large corporations to start equalizing wealth.
Representative Swearingen, what can the state government do to help out struggling Wisconsinites?
Well, first of all, I think it starts on actually the federal level. President Biden obviously giving away money hand over fist here the last couple of years. And then obviously that trickles down to the state of Wisconsin, to our Governor Tony Evers doing the same thing. So we've got to stop the deficit spending on the federal level. And then obviously we've got to stop the hemorrhaging of money going on in the state of Wisconsin by the governor. Clearly Wisconsinites are hurting. You look at what happened under the previous administration when times were much better, prices were much lower. and all this has happened, obviously, in the last couple of years. So once again, I think we definitely need to stop the hemorrhaging of the free money coming out of the state government, which affects all of us.
Thank you, Representative. Ms. Daniel, your 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, I just want to take this time to say again that the money that was given to our taxpayers during the pandemic was greatly needed money. This is money that kept businesses afloat. This is money that kept individuals afloat, helped people who were not able to go into their jobs to stay solvent. And so absolutely, we needed that money. And the state currently has a surplus. So.
Representative Swearingen, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, first of all, I think we should remember that the reason that these businesses were hurting in the first place is because government shut them down. And obviously our governor overextended his power and had to be taken to court to have that removed and decided again. So certainly the state did play a role in helping these businesses get back up and running. Once again, let's stop the free money train and the deficit spending starting on the federal level right down to the state of Wisconsin.
All right, to our second question. With the Dobbs decision, abortion access is now decided on a state-by-state basis. In Wisconsin, that means abortions are now illegal in nearly all cases. Do you support expanding access to abortion in the state? Representative Swearingen, you will start.
Yeah, first of all, we have to understand that obviously when Roe was repealed, that what it did, in fact, is actually put the states back in charge, which is the way it should have been for all along. So I look forward to the next session. I'm sure there's going to be many bills coming across our desk from both sides of the aisle that's going to address the issue of abortion in the state of Wisconsin. Certainly, I am pro-life. I'll let that guide me. But I'm certainly interested in looking at anything that would also have those exceptions for rape, incest, and obviously the life of the mother.
Ms. Daniel, you have 1 minute.
I'm going to say this just plainly. Abortion is health care, and there's absolutely no way any politician or any lawmaker can possibly know all the circumstances surrounding a woman's decision to terminate a pregnancy. By placing any restrictions on how and when a woman can access the care she either needs or wants, government's overstepping its authority. Recently, Governor Evers tried to hold a special session on the possibility of putting the question to voters, and Speaker Voss gavelled in, gavelled out. And my opponent is on the record calling that special session a political stunt, since it was too far in the campaign season to even get it on the November ballot. But there's an election in the spring. And wouldn't now be the time to start discussing this issue on that ballot? But the predominantly male Republican-held legislature in Wisconsin won't even discuss the matter. So I think our representatives should represent the majority of its constituents and not some personally held religious ideology that is just a convenient excuse for them to do nothing.
Representative Swearingen, 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
You bet. I'll double down on the fact that Tony Evers did nothing but a political stunt. You don't call a referendum for the state of Wisconsin 6 weeks prior to an election. That's ridiculous. Not to mention you have several members of the legislature that have resigned. And so those districts actually have no representation. So that's not exactly fair either for those people in those districts. Second of all, abortion is not health care. It's not healthy, and it's not caring, especially if you're the baby.
Ms. Daniel, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Thank you. I will double down that abortion is health care. It's a medical term that is used for many procedures, not just the termination of a live pregnancy, but in many cases an ectopic pregnancy, in many cases a fetus that is not viable and would die within minutes of birth due to birth defects. And it was not a political stunt. Again, there's another election in the spring. And isn't now the time to start talking about how we're going to word that referendum in the spring?